Hi, everyone. We're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
And we are back with Peter Morgan's something, the Netflix series The Crown, season 4.
Y'all, it's here.
Opens with a bang, both literally and figuratively. And we are going to talk about it. So a couple new things for coverage this season that we haven't done before. One, we are going to talk about Northern Ireland in separate videos for a whole host of reasons, including that to get into any of it would take up all of the airspace, and we still want to talk about Charles and Diana. So we're going to be in separate videos on Northern Ireland. Really quick, this particular episode, we found the narrative of the Troubles to be irresponsible storytelling, damaging storytelling.
Very damaging.
And actually, several of the B-roll footages were factually incorrect. Some stuff like that. So we're going to get into that later in the week. Keep an eye on our feed. This main video this week, and we might have to do 2 videos every single week. We're not sure, but we promise you to keep the main Northern Ireland discussion in separate videos.
Yep.
So that we can really get into it and unpack it. If this is the first time you're joining us, we both have PhDs in social science from a university in Northern Ireland. We have both studied and talked about the Troubles and Northern Ireland as a province, state, entity, principality, whatever you want to call it, for nigh on 15 years for about both of us. And so it's something we're incredibly passionate about. My PhD is in gender and religion, and Dr. Erin's is in essentially imprisonment studies. And so we have a lot of thoughts and feelings about the British government in terms of that island. And we definitely heard from viewers last season that some people really appreciated our divergences, and other people really just wanted us to talk about brooches. So we're going to go ahead and divide the coverage in honor of those requests. Also, we got some feedback that people really wished we would kind of recap some episodes at the top instead of just diving into emotions and feelings. So we hear you. We want to serve you. And so therefore we are going to be doing like 60-second recaps at the top of every video so you can situate yourself in what happened. We still don't necessarily think that we're probably a replacement for the series, but maybe we are. I don't know. As you're more frustrated with the series, maybe we're a replacement. We're definitely not as British as everybody else. So that would be a major difference.
Huge difference.
But huge difference. So Dr. Erin, anything else before I get going and telling the good people what Gold Stick was about?
No, let's dive right in.
Okay, so no, we have no idea why it is called Gold Stick.
Nope.
It wasn't clear. So the episode essentially has 2 parallel storylines with one mini one in the middle that doesn't make any sense but was still delightful. So one main storyline is we talk about the relationship of Dickie Mountbatten to Charles and also to Philip, and the role that Dickie Mountbatten plays as both a man and a political advisor, as a father figure to both of them. By the end of this episode, Mountbatten will be assassinated by the IRA, which did happen in County Sligo in 1979. That is factually accurate.
Correct.
And the emotional fallout from that, I don't know if this is accurate, but I can make a lot of assumptions. I don't know if they sent that letter, but at some point, Dickie is very, very clear on the phone with Charles that he has to stop sleeping with half of or perhaps the entire upper class of England and settle down and get what essentially boils down to a trophy wife. He has to get somebody who is just going to calm the people and move forward. Charles tells him to sod off, that what he and Camilla do is their business. So this confirms that he and Camilla are still seeing each other actively in every sense of that word, perhaps. And Charles hangs up on him angrily. He's on a fishing thing with friends in Iceland. And then Dickie sits down before that, right after he gets off the phone call, and writes Charles a fairly scathing letter about how to do his duty is to marry somebody he doesn't love, essentially. Then he goes out in a boat and the IRA blows up his boat. So then the rest of the episode in terms of that is we kind of slowly watch Charles get used to the idea that he has to marry somebody he's not in love with, perhaps at least somebody he's intrigued by, which is where Diana Spencer enters this conversation. They met briefly 2 years prior to the events of this episode, when Charles was seeing, friends with, sleeping with, fill in the blank, Diana's older sister.
Riding away on a horse, that's a euphemism for a lot of things.
Alone. Sure. So when we meet Diana again in this episode, she is freshly turned 18. He is freshly turned like 30, I think.
Yeah, 29,
29.
31. We're not sure. Older.
It's kind of the beginning of what he refers to as being intrigued by her.
Yeah.
And most of the time the camera was on Diana's face. I just wanted to save her from what was coming. So then the other storyline is that we get Maggie Thatcher. Okay, and she wins. She's been the leader of the Conservative Party for 5 years at this point, but the Conservatives win the general election, which means that she is now the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We see her first introduction to Lizzie. This show continues to not be about Elizabeth, and it's not about Elizabeth.
This episode wasn't at all about the Queen, was it?
Not even a little bit. It was about the future. It was about the guy who will someday maybe get the crown at some point, but still doesn't wear it.
Maybe?
Question mark. So we learn a couple key things about Maggie Thatcher. One is that she actually does not believe that women should be in high office. So I would assume she does not think of herself as a woman. There's lots and lots of writing about Maggie Thatcher and her understandings of gender and power. There's lots of feelings about Prime Minister Thatcher that abound in the UK and in the world. So what we learn about in this episode is that she had some pretty clear ideas of who her cabinet would be. Lizzie guessed most of them, which was a charming little thing, and that both of them seemed to surprise the other person. Margaret was not expecting Elizabeth to be quite as engaged and quite as witted as she was, and Elizabeth was expecting Elizabeth was expecting Maggie to be a feminist. Mm-hmm. So there's some confusion there. So those are the two main storylines, and we have a delightful little interlude with Anne becoming an Olympian again. I love all time we spend with Anne because she is my favorite. Yeah. And that's pretty much the crux. So that's kind of everything that happened in this thing. Like I said, everything to do with Dickie Mountbatten outside of the emotions of the familial relations are going to be covered in the subsequent video. But I believe those familial relations are one of the things you wanted to cover, Erin.
Yes. Yeah. Because, the show has actually done a very good job of continuing this thread throughout the first 3 seasons of the role that Lord Mountbatten played in Philip's life, and then the role that he played in Charles's life.
Yes, very true.
So we see this, from time to time. And this episode did a great job of introducing that. We've got the family dinner where Philip is saying like, oh, well, Dickie, you know what's going on with him. You talk to him all the time. Or excuse me, Elizabeth said that to him. So he's the intermediary between, Elizabeth and Philip and their son, Charles, as he is gallivanting around the world and sleeping with loads of ladies. And I found it really fascinating the way they kind of concluded that storyline with the death of Lord Mountbatten that we all knew was coming. And so you get 2 sides of that. You get the conversation that Charles has with Mountbatten right before he goes out on the boat, whether that happened or not in that sequence. I think it was still really instructive of the level of influence that Mountbatten has, but also, and I've been on Twitter and I know a lot of people are upset at Charles, and I'm not scapegoating Charles for his marriage to Diana. But the show has done a pretty good job of setting up just how little his family cared about anything Charles wanted.
Yeah. This shouldn't come as a surprise to you that he wasn't into his marriage with Diana. And if it does, I'm sorry, you just haven't been paying attention.
Yeah. And, the argument I even made to myself in my own notes was like, yes, but he's also known he's been the heir since he was like, 5?
Yeah, this is still a little bit of a temper tantrum.
So he should have known he was always going to have to do this. But, the show has really taken time to show us all these different ways in which the rules that apply to the rest of his family do not apply to him. And that could be because he's the heir, whatever. So, am I upset about the way Diana is treated by this family and Charles? 100%. She is totally the victim. But he is a victim of his family in a different way as well, which bears remembering. And for me, probably the most fascinating acting and the best part of the episode was the conversation that Charles and Philip had. when Charles returns from Iceland after Lord Mountbatten is murdered. And you get like top class acting from Tobias Menzies.
And Josh O'Connor.
And Josh
Both
O'Connor.
of them just knocked that out of the park.
Because Josh O'Connor had to do a lot with his face.
And and he plays Charles as super like facially constipated a lot.
Yeah.
And it was genius. I hope that goes on their Emmy reels, that scene.
Yeah, that's what I like. As soon as that scene was over, I turned to my mom and I said, wow, everyone's gunning for Emmys this year. It was brilliantly acted, and like Philip is like explaining that he is, in a very emotionally intelligent way, like mad at Charles and mad at Dickie, but not really, like in this resentful way, that he replaced me as father to you and you replaced me as son to him. And Charles is like, but I didn't like ask for that. That wasn't, and you know, Philip, and this comes from the idea that Philip is apparently mad that Charles has been selected to do the reading for Mountbatten in his 500 pages of instructions, which I absolutely believe is 100% fact.
100% accurate. There is no way there was less than 500 pages. No way.
Of instructions. And so that's like the last nail in the proverbial coffin for Philip, right? Is that this man who became a father to him for his whole life chose his son. Mm-hmm. And Philip, Charles, all he's ever wanted to do is please his father. All he has ever wanted to do, and he can't do it. He even tries, and he's like, well, Father, you can do the reading, and I'll stand next to you. And he was like, no, I will not go against Dickie's wishes. So for me, like, emotionally, I was like, oh, it's those scenes where the show, as much as it frustrates me, I was like, God, this is good television.
Yeah, everything that's frustrating to me about it is Peter Morgan's fault. It's never
the actors.
It's never the actors. God, they bring 400% to every single scene. There's been maybe 2 performances I haven't loved this whole series. Like they just, God, they're good. God, they're good.
And like the injection of Anne into this storyline felt a little bit weird. But I understand that they were showing the different relationship that Philip has with his 2 oldest children.
Yeah, and I get like that we're going to keep driving that home. And also Anne like does go to the Olympics. So like we have to set that up.
Olympian. Why we don't talk about that more. I was kind of mad that it's, I hope they focus on it in the show, because it tends to be a throwaway comment in the narrative of the royal family that they had a freaking Olympian in their midst. But yeah, for me, that was like such a powerful part of the episode, and obviously setting up, you know, what will be the main storyline of this season, which is Charles and Diana's relationship and the way that it is forced upon Charles and how Diana is dealt with by Charles and by the royal family. And yeah, we have some thoughts. I know you have some thoughts about Diana going into episode 1. It's hard to watch these things knowing how it ends.
Like her prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet. Like humans don't stop developing until like 25. Mm-hmm. And so we dangle a princesshood in front of this chick at 17, 18, like 18.
And for me, the thing that like I didn't know and I believe to be true, because I think Peter Morgan tries to be as truthful about some things. But I think this is true, that her nickname was Dutch in her family. That like, and I don't think I knew that like before this show, but that she in her head always wanted to be the princess, like the Duchess. She always wanted that position. And of course, an 18-year-old dangled with a charismatic, handsome prince. Like
not very charismatic, but still a prince. Sorry. I don't understand. Like if anyone's attraction to Charles outside of the title personally baffles me. But
yeah. But like she found him charismatic.
Cool.
I'll say it that way. Sure. I'll say it that way. Yeah, but there were a couple things in this episode where I was like, oh.
So a couple for I know I was always told that she was like the people's princess, like just so we all understand, like she's still the daughter of landed gentry, like she's still in the upper class. She still grew up adjacent to these worlds and understanding things and all of that. So it's going to be interesting. I want to pause the Diana stuff because we'll be talking about her for the rest of the series, and talk really briefly. And I want to make an emphatic statement so everyone understands us. Margaret Thatcher was not a feminist.
Oh yeah. Oh, we jumped over that. And then absolutely not. And
Margaret Thatcher.
Elizabeth ever thought that, but they had to get that across to the audience.
Yeah, I don't think Elizabeth was a feminist in the early 80s. I think this was an explanation for the rest of us, but that's fine. Margaret Thatcher was harsh. The way she talked about the IRA at the end of the episode, we have problems with because of the narrative, but she said those words.
Yeah.
And she was intense, and she had very specific ideas for what Britain should look like. She was not known for compromise. She was not known for listening to others' opinions. She has a very specific legacy that there's eons of documentary and literary analysis of her thing. But there's a lot of misconceptions, especially outside of the United Kingdom, that because she was the first female prime minister of a Western country, that meant she was a feminist. Yeah. And in fact, my colleagues that teach British politics would argue that she was the first female prime minister of a Western country because she wasn't.
Yeah, and that I think is made, and it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because it's made abundantly clear from that conversation with Elizabeth, who is like, well, I assume your cabinets are all going to be women. And she's like, oh no, women aren't suited for higher office. She says to the Queen. As a she. As a lady with female genitalia. But that shows you, that line shows you so much about how Margaret Thatcher saw herself. And I think the only reason she was at the head of the Conservative Party, and I could be wrong about this for a lot of reasons because I haven't made myself an expert in that. But I think one of the biggest is how she portrayed herself as not feminine. But we also see this, that she's still treated like that way by the old boys club. So it's interesting to me that like she was elevated to this position because she wasn't,
I think she like behaved herself. Like she had children, but like didn't make a big deal out of it. Like she wore the skirts. Like I think she was the right woman, but we can get into that and we will at later dates.
Oh yeah.
But we didn't get a whole lot of Maggie in this particular episode, but we will in the future. But before we sign off for this week, because we've talked about a lot of things, because the episode did a lot of things.
Oh boy.
We want to emphatically state that Diana was developmentally unprepared for what she was about to embark on, and Margaret Thatcher was not a feminist.
And those are our two concluding thoughts, aside from the fact that the history of Northern Ireland that was given 7 minutes time in these two B-rolls was deeply misinformed and upsetting for a lot of people, not just us, but a lot of people that we know and love in Northern Ireland. And we will get into that in another video this week. So if you don't care about that, we will see you for episode 2. And if you do, we will see you in that special Northern Ireland special edition video.
Beep, 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 beep. Time for an Ireland update. Okay, we'll see you guys whenever we see you. Bye.
Bye.